All right, we're on this side tonight. Can everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. Ricky, can I get a roll call?
Michael Casper.
Present.
Thomas Foote.
I'm here.
Maggie LaFave.
Here.
Barb Hebert.
Here.
Charles Costick.
Here.
Rick Collins. James Coffey.
Here. Is there anything for public comment this evening? Nothing for public comment. Before we get into a special presentation, tonight is a work session. We do have a presentation, and there's a couple action items that I'm going to move to the table tonight because we are going to be off December 26th, which means that we only have this meeting and next week's meeting before we close up the year. Okay, so just giving folks a heads up. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Trevor to make some introductions.
Thank you, Supervisor Cashman and members of the board. I know you got a busy schedule. Thanks for carving out a little bit of time for us to give a presentation. With me tonight, I have Rob Polaro. He's been our intern for this past semester. He's a senior at SUNY Plattsburgh with a major in environmental policy and management, a minor in GIS. So he spent some time with us this year doing the GIS project, collecting streetlight data primarily, but also tabulating that and giving us a real wealth of knowledge. I can say Rob's been a pleasure to work with. He's a polite guy and he's got a really great work ethic, and I've enjoyed his company, and he's really given us some valuable data. And I won't waste time talking. I'll hand it over to Rob to introduce himself and tell you about what he's been doing.
So yeah, I'm Rob. I was working with Trevor this semester, and essentially my project was to travel around town and use a map called Map It to map out the streetlights in town using satellite data. And the project included the physical collection of going out to each streetlight and looking at them and collecting the tag number and the wattage. And then also the data entry of taking the data from the Map It app and putting it into the GIS database. So this is kind of what the Map It screen looks like. So all the dots would be the street lights, and then as you travel around you can add different points on the map as you go. This is the town map of all the roads. So it wasn't all computers and cell phones and everything like that. We also had to use just a paper map and highlight all the roads that I traveled as I went along.
You did all of them in the whole town?
Yeah, so all of the pink highlighted is all of the roads that I drove and collected streetlights on. So I didn't do like the 374 big highway through the middle, but all the other roads and town roads there I did.
You got a really good education on town geography.
Yeah, I got familiar with everything in town pretty quick. So this is a tag that I was looking for. The T number 1016 would be the actual number that I would take to put into the database. And then, you can't really see that very well, but the 10 on the underside of the light there is the wattage for the bulb. And I also collected that when I went out for each street light. Some of them were marked 10, some would be marked 16 for 150, 44 for the LED, the new lights, and so on and so forth. And so this is a GIS map of the town with all the streetlights collected. It just has the town background on it.
You got a lot of lights if you didn't.
Yeah, we have a ton of lights.
A lot more than we thought, right?
About as many as you thought, but once you get visually hit by it and have a pinpoint location with attribute table and data for each one, it's kind of an impressive thing to see.
So most of them are 44s?
No.
Yeah. Nice try.
There's a
We wish.
wide variety. A lot of them are 10s. In all of the main roads through like Tom Miller and Route 3 and 22, they were all pretty high volt high wattage, they're like 25s, 15s, 17s, but then kind of on the back roads and out towards the perimeter, it got a little bit lighter to like 10 and 70. So this is kind of what the stream would look like when you're putting in the data and editing the database. So on the right is the attribute table, and it gives you the street name where all the lights would be found. It also tells you the pole number that is on that yellow tag on the light, and third is where, or the wattage of the actual light, and some of them were unmarked, just the tags were scraping off, or they just physically didn't have any marking on them. But you can see the differences in light wattages there. And this,
I asked Rob to throw this in, I just wanted to point out, this is a subtle query, but it just points out the power of some of the data collection and what we can do with it. I had Rob just ask a basic query. What are all the, the street lights on Ruger? So it's going to highlight just the street lights that are on Ruger, and you could, before our guys go out in a truck, could say, oh, I want to replace that light, what's the wattage? Without driving out, verifying it, you know what bulbs to throw in the truck. It's a simple question, but that saves the trip. And that's just one example of many applications, but you know, just an example of how some of this data can be used day to day.
so yeah, and partnering that data with other town data like this, we were able to come up with maps that include all the lights in the different lighting districts that the town has set up. So this map just shows all the lights in the consolidated district, which is the large project district. And here it shows you the total lights. This one here shows you the difference between the consolidated district and the special district. The blue points here are just kind of the outliers that were included in the consolidated but not the special district. And this is just kind of a good example of a small map that you can produce that shows a lot of information using a pretty limited amount of data, but still portrays a lot and gets a good message across. Yeah, and the data collection took me about 19 days and 85 hours, and it was about 2 days a week, so I was driving around for about 3.5 hours a day, going to each street light in town, on every road, pulling over, getting out, climbing through the snow, and then I'd come back for about an hour, 2 hours, and input the data into the GIS system and start making some of these maps. So yeah, in the project summary, we have in total about 2,619 lights on the streets. We weren't able, or we didn't think at the time necessarily to collect the park and municipal structure lighting. So any of the lights that light up the parking lots and everything in like the town parks and stuff. But that would be a cool addition to do potentially next semester if I'm able to get another internship. And yeah, just to update the existing data set with those new lights, just because the town does pay to support those lights and pay for the electricity for it, so it'd be nice to know. That's it.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Ron.
So,
Very nice, appreciate
the amount of,
all that work.
amount of lumens and stuff, or, you know, you've got all that, so we know how to decrease it.
We have a lot of data that we can now use to ask a lot of questions. You gotta get the data first, and
Yeah.
it's invaluable to have someone like Rob who could spend the time to go out and collect it. Data collection first is, and having it collected accurately, I can't stress the importance of that, because without that data that no one else will provide that for us. That is now ours. There is no, GIS clearinghouse of New York State where we can go and get the GIS data for our streetlights. That's ours, we've created it in-house, and having that allows us to then work on different programs and ask it questions.
Trevor or Rob, do you want to introduce your faculty sponsor?
I would like to. Behind me is Eileen Allen, and she is also Rob's advisor. And it was Eileen who made the connection with us and recommended Rob. Also a mentor of mine personally. But it was very great time to put this together, so I'd also like to thank Eileen for helping put this internship in place. It's been very valuable to us. Thank you.
It's quite wonderful that we're able to have this partnership and provide an educational opportunity for Bob and have such an incredible project come out of that. So I'm proud of both of you and just delighted for your efforts.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, on behalf of the town of Plattsburgh and the folks that work here every day, thank you for your project. You really have been a delight, and we hope that you will strongly consider continuing doing some type of project with us next semester. I think there's a lot more practical applications and stuff that you could be using for your portfolio. That, you know, in my opinion, this is something I wish we would have had much earlier to help us to make some very strong decisions and determinations before other decisions were made, but I won't jump on my soapbox there, but thank you. Your contributions will certainly be used in many different applications, not only to, you know, service the utility or the infrastructure, but also these type of statistics are very helpful for grants and looking at the total performance and portfolio of the township. So it was a lot of work, as you said, out there in the field, but worthy of an undertaking.
And I would like to say thank you, Rob. I'm the newest counselor, and when I first came on board, I was put on buildings and grounds, and we had a lot of discussions, Meg and I, about lighting, what we want to do down the road. The data that you've collected is going to be invaluable, absolutely, because one of our goals is to eventually go fully LED, but we really did not have a handle on what our inventory was, what did we actually own, what were we going to need to do to move forward. And to Michael's point, and also Trevor's discussed it quite often, you know, grant opportunities, et cetera. Now we have very, very useful data. I don't know if you've realized the impact that this really could have, so thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, this is something that not only will help us with those kind of things, but the type of work that you did, while you might think it's not that great, you know, you went out to each one of those things, anybody could do this. No, this is important because this affects every taxpayer, affects the whole town in terms of how we make decisions, in terms of how we save money, and how we approach these projects. And as she said, in getting the grant. So I just want you to know that little things, whatever you're doing, has great impacts. You just don't even realize it at the time.
Yeah, municipalities, I think, are adopting the philosophy, and I think we're trying to do that, is, as I talked to Trevor, is that policymaking should be driven by data as much as possible in order to make the best, well-informed decisions about what you're going to do next. So we actually have a big chunk of other steps that might be required if we do conversion, so.
Well, part by data, but mostly my ideas, right?
That's assuming, Tom.
Yes.
Rob, where are you from?
Queensbury,
And what year are you?
I'm a senior.
Okay, so what's your plan?
I don't know.
That's a good answer.
Graduate.
You sound like a senior.
That sounds right.
Graduate on time. Right now is my plan.
Don't forget your career development office.
Do you have a possible opportunity for another internship through school?
Here?
Here.
Yeah,
Yes,
we're trying to
yes.
keep
We have to talk about that.
Okay.
And see how that, but I think it sounds like a good idea.
I think that's great.
The-
Part two.
The one thing that I would ask you, Carrie, back to the campus too, is, you know, we know that there's many more applications in, you know, your department and elsewhere. You know, we've had some other students in communications, et cetera. We want to thank you, but we also want to thank the college for finding opportunities for students, because government is not always a place where students are encouraged to consider doing internships. But as I often say, that there are so many parallels between the private sector and the public sector, and there's such important and critical work. So what you've provided really is a service, certainly part of an internship, but it will be used a long time. And I can tell you too, Trevor thinks very highly of you. So, all right.
Hey, Trevor, will
Caps
we
on the bag.
be able to memorialize this presentation by putting it in the shared drive so we can access that if we want to?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. Ian.
Thanks, Rob.
Appreciate
Good
it.
night, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
All right, I'm gonna bounce around a little bit, but we've got a pretty deep well of draft resolutions, but looking for some feedback and materials. But just to give you a sense of it, we do have one item that I need to begin to act on, and we have an abstract this week. I can find it in my avalanche of things here. Resolution 208, abstract 12B-19.
Resolved that the abstract of audited claims number 12B-19, 2401 to 2462 for $98,273.74. An abstract 12B-19B, 378 to 382 prepays in the amount of $216,263.35 be received as reviewed by the audit committee, and the supervisors hereby authorized to pay said abstract.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Hebert, is there a second?
Second.
Costick, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
So does carry. Thank you. Like I said, we will have an abstract again next week as well, too. So, we do have draft minutes, monthly reports, drug and alcohol testing. A lot of these are going to be some of our annuals going forward. EIS services, this has been one of those things that have been very helpful for our employees to be able to use for counseling and such.
Michael,
Yep.
if we get, just back to the drug alcohol testing, I noticed Mel was listed as the DER.
We have several of them.
Okay, I didn't know because if that was because of her activity on the safety committee, which she did.
Nope, she's been doing it for a while.
Okay. It was
The
just one
three
question.
primary people that have been doing it is Mel, Patrick, and myself.
Okay.
And it's always been helpful to have some backups in case
Oh,
people are on vacation and stuff. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Then website contract agreement. JCEO is basically keeping the same along with Elmore. The town board meeting dates for 2020. The general spirit of it was we were planning on keeping Thursday's meetings. One thing that came to the attention earlier is as we get closer to holidays and December and stuff, we can always amend our schedule if necessary or have an extra meeting should it be necessary. So I just bring that to your attention that as we get closer to December, we may have to do that. Just trying to get to committees. This was a placeholder, so upon reviewing this, for assessing, planning, the codes, zoning committee, we had Tom and Barb. Are you folks seeking to remain in those positions?
Yes.
Are we? Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay. For the auditing committee, I know that Chuck had said that he would be willing to take the auditing committee. Mr. Wood, are you seeking to step off the auditing committee?
I'm a substitute, I think, so yes, I'll continue in my capacity as a
Yes or no,
substitute, in case somebody else can't
Open
make
the
it.
door, Chuck, on that one.
Okay, so I think that was a yes, okay.
Do we now have alternates for our committee?
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah. This isn't baseball. Costick and LaFave, for building and grounds committee, keeping in mind that there was gonna be a continuation of that, for this year. And then, Meg and Chuck, for the community services and ambulance, you're both seeking to stay on that for next year?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
okay. Hebert, are you willing to remain on the finance committee?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, and then Wood and Hebert, highway committee, the continuation of that. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
That's okay,
Okay.
unless somebody else really is, desirous of doing it.
Wood and Hebert, staying on the justice court committee.
Yes.
Okay. Meg and Chuck on personnel committee.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And then Costick and Wood on the Safety Committee.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. And then LaFave and Costick on the Water and Wastewater Committee. Okay. And then wrapping it up with Chuck and Meg on Youth Services and Recreation. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So really, then Chuck's gonna carry the load next year with this number of committees, right?
That's all right.
We, as we've always said, we can make adjustments later on, so keep that going. All right. And fire districts seeking to remain the same? Yes? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I guess we'll keep Jim Coffey.
Who?
Who?
That was a joke, Jim. You're supposed to laugh. But as I told my wife, if you have to explain it, it's usually not funny.
That's funny.
Court clerks, an appointment. There are 3 individuals that we are, for appointments, Roger Black for ZBA, appointment of Jeff Wagner, to the planning board, an appointment of the illustrious Debbie Blake to the planning board as well. So those 3 names will be up for
The
consideration.
first two are already
next
on,
week
right? They're
as
just
well.
renewals?
Yep, and we have an opening and we vetted all of the names through the individual
It
committees
seems,
as well.
seems to me
Did
like
you
Debbie,
send out the-
Debbie's been on it too.
The application did well.
She's been on it quite often.
Yes.
I'm
So
one of those
she's an
alternates that you are.
Substitute,
do
you're
it every week.
officially,
Let's
you're
do it
officially an
every week, I
alternate. You have a resolution to that.
Who did you ask for consideration for
Planning?
planning board?
Hope Corey.
Either you gave it to her or Trevor gave it to her, correct?
I
I know
did.
she's,
Trevor was gonna follow up.
yeah, so he's given it to
Oh,
her.
okay,
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna put in like an application out to the, not to the public.
We are going to, but we had one person that they had a name for,
Got it.
so in 2020, we'll put that application out
Yeah.
wholesale to anybody,
Okay.
a town resident. Yep.
So, what's the thing on Hope, is she not?
I haven't, Trevor, I don't believe, has heard anything yet, so,
Did you talk to her?
I believe,
But there's, but
like anything, I think, you
there's
know,
consideration.
there's,
Okay,
it's,
consider
you know,
it, yeah.
trying to figure out, you know, meeting times and stuff, and I think those applications are gonna be helpful, so
Yes,
that
they
people
are.
can
Yeah.
give some consideration, do you have the time and the ability?
And so we can have a bit of a pool.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah. Fair Housing Officer, the annual appointment. I want to thank in advance Meg for her willingness to continue as deputy supervisor. I mean that most sincerely. Highway grate replacement, the safety committee has been doing some good work and trying to wrap up some end-of-the-year projects. There's a grate that runs as kind of a channel in the back that needs to be worked on, so that's what that is. The wrap-up, I know there's some final touches that need to be put on it, but we're doing these as placeholders for next week. The ambulance agreements, and then the municipal property and liability insurance renewal. And then finally is I would ask for us to consider this tonight, that's why I put it on last. We got it. Let me just get to it.
That's the 117,000?
Chazen?
Yep,
Don't you look for?
let me just find
Okay.
it. And we will give this number 209. Enter into agreement with Chazen Company zoning update 2020.
Okay, yeah, because I know there's a lot there, so.
No. Whereas the town planning community development has 2-year term agreement for professional services with the Chazen Company. Whereas in further instance of the town smart growth plan and town comprehensive plan goals, the town board, town of Plattsburgh, desires to amend the zoning ordinance. Whereas Chazen Company has provided a scope of work and fee and time schedule for consideration. Whereas the planning and community development departments and codes zoning departments have budgeted $60,000 each for such amendments by line items as so noted respectively. Now therefore be resolved that the town board hereby authorizes Chase and Company to prepare zoning ordinance amendments in coordination with the codes and planning departments for the amount of $117,500. And to be further resolved, the supervisors hereby authorized to sign all related documentation relative to the survey authorization. And to be further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Planning and Community Development Department, Codes Department, and Accounting Department.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Wood, is there a second?
Second.
LaFave. I'll just give put a little more context on this. We have adopted our smart growth plan, and this is that second portion of it that we have been seeking to do as it relates to the comprehensive land use. The reason I'm bringing this to you tonight is so that we can make sure that we wrap up all of our contracts, et cetera, before the end of the year. I don't want to get stuck in that end of the year, close to the holidays. And now that they've buttoned that down. So if you can give consideration to this tonight, just administratively, it would be a lot easier.
Yeah, that's
So,
fine. Michael,
okay.
just so, I like the way they break down the deliverables in
Yep.
terms of their drafts. Just want to make sure that the percentages are accurate, because, what page is this, whatever, page 2, I guess. We've got 50%, 75%, and 90% on our drafts, their drafts, they wanted to present a series of drafts, which is a great idea.
Yep.
But on task 2.4, it's got 95%, so I just want to make sure.
So, all-
50,
those are for points of consideration and conversation. One of the first things that they are going to
Okay.
do is in the kickoff meeting is to better identify
Okay.
the long-term kind of areas. And they're gonna lean on Trevor in particular for the planning aspects and Steve for codes and zoning to find out where they need to put the emphasis on. Sometimes our staff members can actually do some of the work, so that can reallocate some of the percentages if they have an area of expertise.
Right.
They may say, hey, we've not worked on this in a while, we'd like to shift this 10% here, 5% here, so it gives them a scope of work versus locking in a percentage.
Because I like the breakdown of percentage, I just
Yep.
want to make sure that they're
Yep.
matching.
Doesn't also have to do with whether it's outside the smart growth area?
Yes.
There are some things that we're gonna be changing or
And-
need to change, and then that would be part of what they have to figure out.
Exactly, and this is not just about only the smart growth area. So Tom, you were talking about, initially when we kicked off our smart growth study, what about some of the things outside of that area? This will be one of those items that will be beyond the smart growth area. But we wanted to have that as, for lack of better terms, an overlay, so that we could kind of bring those things together, stitch them together appropriately. We will also have a PAC again, a public advisory committee, which will be beneficial to making sure that it's done with the public's interest in, with the public involvement with this. So, this will be another
be,
serious project.
Using some of the same people, or whoever wants?
I would anticipate that between Steve and Trevor, he'll make some recommendations. Then we, of course, will also have an opportunity, we may want to use that application as, I think there's actually a segment on the application where it says, special ad hoc committees, et cetera. So we can make some appointments to that. Their recommendation always is not to have a group that's so overwhelmingly large that you can't actually function as a group, though.
Have they ever done this before for us?
They were part of the smart growth plan, they've been part of some other plans.
But
Yeah.
this function they haven't performed for us?
After the first,
I believe that they were involved.
10 years ago, after the,
Comprehensive land use?
Yeah, I think they were involved in one of the
Yeah.
initial plans
Okay.
about 10 years ago. Yeah, and this is something that that doesn't happen very often.
Okay.
It's got a longer body to it. So, all right.
Okay.
Can I get
Michael.
I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on this, please.
Thomas Wood,
yes.
Mike LaFave,
Yes.
Barb Hebert,
Yes,
Charles Costa.
Yes.
Ken Henderson.
Yes, the resolution carries. Thank you very much. That's that. for all members of the council, Ricky and Jim, we're going to attempt something that we've made attempts before, and someone's either been sick or not here or what have you, to get a group photo. So for the historical, so next week, please come a couple minutes early and we'll take our group photo, okay?
If you have somebody to take the picture?
We will work on that, so. Are you volunteering somebody that you know?
No, I had volunteered one before, it was some time ago, but
Okay.
I'm quite open to whoever
Okay.
does it.
Again, we will, these items and a couple other items wrapping up the year will be on the agenda next week. We won't have a meeting on the 26th, and then we will identify whether or not we are definitely having the meeting on the 2nd or not. I know some people have been advocating that they may either be out of town or what have you. All right? Anything else? And I know of no reason to go into an executive session. So I'm hoping to end the year without having one. So,
The only thing is that the person that I recommended doesn't want anybody standing directly under that, so that it looks like it's their hat.
okay, so we will adjourn tonight at 6:31 PM.